The stars above the human colonies shone brightly, glittering like distant fires in the dark sea of space. Among these stars, planets teemed with life. Humans had spread far beyond Earth, building homes on new worlds. These colonies were peaceful and full of hope. Cities sparkled with light, farms stretched across wide fields, and children played under alien skies. For many years, life had been good. People looked forward to a future of growth and exploration. Captain Mira Jensen stood on the observation deck of the starship Horizon. She gazed out at the swirling blue planet below, the colony of New Terra. The air was calm, the weather perfect, yet something about the quiet made her uneasy. Her fingers tapped lightly on the console as her eyes scanned the data streams. Alien scouts had been detected near the colony's outer edge. Though small and fast, these ships were from a hostile race called the Jarix, feared throughout the galaxy for their ruthless conquests. Mira knew the Jarix were dangerous. Their fleets had destroyed many worlds before, but the people of New Terra trusted their defenses and the strength of their allies. Still, the captain felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. Something was not right. Suddenly, the ship's alarm blinked red. Sensors picked up a strange signal, unlike anything seen before. It was a low hum, deep and powerful. The source came from a nearby moon. One long thought uninhabited. Curious and cautious, Mira ordered the crew to investigate. As the Horizon approached the moon, an astonishing sight appeared through the thick atmosphere. Massive wings, shining scales, and glowing eyes pierced the sky. Dragons, creatures once thought lost to myth, soared across the horizon. Their roar echoed through the clouds, shaking the ship's hull. The crew gasped. These were no ordinary animals. The dragons flew with grace and strength, faster than any fighter jet. They circled the moon, as if guarding something precious. Mira remembered the secret project whispered about in government circles, the Draconis Initiative. Long ago, scientists had used alien DNA and ancient dragon fossils to recreate these beings. The dragons were humanity's secret protectors, hidden until the time of greatest need. But why now? Why had they appeared suddenly, before Mira could ask more? The ship's communication system crackled. An alien voice spoke in harsh tones. The Jarix demanded humanity surrender its colonies or face destruction. The voice carried a cold warning, a threat that chilled the hearts of everyone aboard. The captain's face hardened. She replied with calm defiance, declaring that humans would never bow to tyrants. The response was met with silence. But outside, the dragons took flight toward the approaching enemy scouts. The first clash was about to begin. Below the moon's surface, deep caves housed the dragons' nests. Scientists and dragon riders prepared for battle. These humans had formed close bonds with the dragons through special neural links. When a rider touched the dragon's scales, they shared thoughts, feelings, and instincts. This connection made them faster, stronger, and more aware in combat. A young rider named Kian adjusted his helmet and checked his gear. He was nervous, but ready. His dragon, Ember, flicked her fiery tail, sending sparks into the cool cave air. Kian whispered a calming word, feeling the warmth of Ember's breath. Together, they soared into the dark sky. The stars blurred as they sped toward the alien ships. Laser blasts lit up the night as dragons dodged and weaved through the enemy fleet. Ember unleashed a burst of fire, melting the shields of a small scout vessel. The aliens screamed in anger and confusion. Their weapons, powerful against machines, were useless against living armor made of scales and fire. The dragon's wings stirred the air with such force that enemy ships lost control and crashed. On New Terra, citizens watched from their windows and screens, eyes wide with awe. The legends of dragons were true, and they fought for humanity with unmatched courage, but the victory was only the beginning. High above the battlefield, the alien command ship appeared. It was enormous, dark, and heavily armed. Its arrival signaled that the Xarics were serious. They had brought their full might to crush the human rebellion. Mira's mind raced. She knew humans must prepare for a war unlike any before. The dragons were powerful, but the enemy had strength in numbers and advanced technology. The coming days would test every human and dragon alike. Back on New Terra, the people gathered in town halls and shelters. Messages from leaders urged calm and unity. Scientists studied the alien technology, searching for weaknesses. Engineers worked day and night to upgrade defenses. Children listened with wide eyes, dreaming of dragons and heroes. In the quiet moments, Mira thought about what lay ahead. The peaceful days of colony life were ending. But she believed in humanity's spirit. They were clever, brave, and determined. And now, with dragons by their side, they had a secret weapon no enemy could ignore. The stars blinked cold and distant, but on New Terra, a new light was rising. The dragons were awake, and humanity was ready to fight. As the night deepened, a dragon's roar echoed across the sky, wild, fierce, and full of promise. It was a call to battle, a warning to the stars. Humans were no longer alone. They were protected by fire, wings, and unbreakable will. The calm before the storm had passed. Beneath the surface of New Terra and beyond, hidden from the eyes of most, lay a secret humanity had guarded for decades. This secret was not a weapon, made of metal or machines, but something far older and far more powerful. Dragons. These magnificent creatures were no longer just legends whispered in stories. They were real, alive, and ready to fight for humankind. The origin of these dragons was as incredible as their existence. Years before the colonies had spread into the stars, a small group of scientists and engineers had worked in secret on a project known only as the Draconis Initiative. Their goal was bold: using advanced science, alien genetics, and ancient fossil remains to bring back dragons from myth into reality. It was an experiment blending the future and the past, combining human determination with the power of nature itself. Dr. Elias Renner, the lead geneticist of the initiative, often reflected on the task's difficulty. He had spent countless hours studying fragments of dragon DNA found on distant planets and mixed it carefully with human and alien genes to create creatures capable of flight, fire, and fierce loyalty. The process required patience, skill, and hope. Each dragon born was a miracle. Inside a vast underground laboratory carved into the rocky moon, dozens of dragons hatched in incubators glowing with blue light. Their scales shimmered with hues of red, gold, and deep green. As they grew, the dragons were trained not only in flight but in battle and discipline. Human riders formed special bonds with the creatures, learning to connect through a neural link technology. This connection was more than just riding. It was a sharing of senses and thoughts, creating a powerful team. A young rider named Lyra smiled softly as she ran her hand over the smooth, warm scales of her dragon, Zephyr. Unlike many others, Zephyr was smaller and faster, with silver wings that caught the light like the wind itself. Lyra loved him not just as a protector, but as a friend. Together they practiced swift aerial maneuvers, preparing for a future that no one wished to see. Elsewhere, larger dragons trained with their riders. Thunder, a giant beast with scales the color of storm clouds, roared in the training field. His rider, Captain Orion Hale, matched Thunder's strength with calm control. Orion had joined the initiative years ago, believing in the dragons' power to change humanity's fate. He often reminded his fellow riders that these creatures were the last hope against the Xarics. The dragons' abilities amazed even their creators. Their scales were tougher than the strongest alloys, able to withstand the deadliest alien weapons. Their breath was not just fire, but a controlled plasma blast that could melt enemy ships or disable machines. Some dragons could emit piercing sonic roars that shattered sensors and confused attackers. Each dragon had unique talents, making them unpredictable and deadly. Dr. Renner stood by the main observation window, watching a group of dragons fly in perfect formation. He felt pride and fear at the same time. Pride because humanity had achieved what once seemed impossible. Fear because soon, these dragons would face real enemies, aliens who knew nothing but war and conquest. The Draconis Initiative was more than science. It was a symbol of hope. The dragons carried the spirit of survival, the strength of human creativity, and the bond between species. In training sessions, riders learned to anticipate their dragons' moves, and dragons learned to trust their humans completely. This harmony gave them an edge no enemy could easily overcome. Meanwhile, in the command center on New Terra, General Simone Reyes studied intelligence reports. She knew the Jariks would strike hard and fast. Yet, with the dragons in the skies, humanity had a secret weapon no alien had ever seen before. The general prepared to deploy the dragons across key locations, ready to defend the colonies with unmatched ferocity. At the same time, scientists worked on improving the neural links. They developed helmets and suits that allowed riders to control dragons with thought alone. This technology made human and dragon move as one, faster than any enemy could track. Lyra and Zephyr were among the first to test these new devices, flying higher and faster, pushing limits no one believed possible. News of the dragon's awakening spread quietly among the colonies. People who once feared for their lives now looked to the skies with wonder and relief. Artists painted images of dragons soaring beside starships. Children dreamed of flying on dragonbacks. The creatures became symbols of strength, courage, and unity. But not everyone was ready to trust the dragons. Some leaders worried about the danger of such power, fearing the creatures might become uncontrollable. There were heated debates about how and when to use them. Yet, as the alien threat grew closer, these fears began to fade. The dragons were no longer an experiment. They were the defenders of humanity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra and Zephyr sat atop a hill overlooking the colony. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and purple. Lyra whispered stories to her dragon, stories of Earth, of human bravery, and of the battles to come. Zephyr listened, his eyes glowing softly in the twilight. In that quiet moment, they both knew their lives had changed forever. They were not just rider and beast. They were partners in a fight for survival. Together, they would rise to meet the challenge, proving that humans and dragons could face any enemy, no matter how fierce. Across the galaxy, unseen by most, the alien fleets prepared to attack, but they did not yet understand what waited for them. Dragons had awakened, and humanity had become something more than it had ever been before. The time of legends was here. The dark sky above New Terra erupted with sudden flashes of light as the first wave of alien scouts approached the colony. Their ships cut through the clouds, swift and silent, seeking to strike before the humans could mount a defense. But they had not counted on the dragons. From the hidden caves on the moon nearby, a thunderous roar echoed as the dragons took flight. Their enormous wings spread wide, catching the thin air with power. Riders like Kian and Lyra soared into the growing battle, feeling the rush of wind against their faces and the steady beat of their dragon's heart beneath them. The aliens fired first. Beams of deadly energy lanced toward the dragons, lighting up the night with fierce colors. But the Dragons moved with grace and speed beyond the machine's aim. They twisted and darted, their scales reflecting blasts that would have shattered ordinary shields. Ember, Kian's dragon, led the charge. She dove between enemy vessels, her fiery breath blazing a trail of destruction. Ships exploded, their hulls melting under the intense heat. The aliens shouted orders, struggling to adapt to this new threat. Above the chaos, the bond between rider and dragon became clear. Kian's mind synced with Ember's, sharing every thought and feeling. They moved as one, anticipating attacks, and striking with precision. This unity gave them an edge that no technology could match. On the ground, people watched from their homes and control centers, awe filling their hearts. The dragons were more than legends. They were warriors of fire and wing, protecting humanity with fierce loyalty. The alien scouts regrouped, launching missiles and swarms of smaller attack drones. The dragons responded with sonic roars that shattered sensors and sent machines spiraling out of control. Some dragons even used ice breath, freezing enemy engines and causing ships to crash. Despite the dragons' power, the battle was far from easy. Several riders were forced to pull back after taking damage, and some dragons showed signs of fatigue. The aliens fought fiercely, their discipline and numbers testing the humans' defenses. Captain Mira Jensen, watching from the command bridge of the horizon, barked orders to coordinate the defense. "Keep the dragons focused on the scouts. We need to protect the colony at all costs." Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the pressure of knowing this was only the beginning. As the battle raged, a larger alien ship appeared on the horizon, the command flagship. It was vast and heavily armed, dwarfing the smaller scouts. Its presence sent a ripple of fear through the human ranks. The dragons sensed the danger too. Riders signaled each other, preparing for a new phase of combat. The flagship's weapons were stronger and its shields thicker. It would take every ounce of courage and skill to face it. Lyra and Zephyr circled above, watching the massive ship's movements. Zephyr's wings beat harder, ready to strike. Lyra tightened her grip on the reins, her mind focused and calm. Together, they planned their attack. Suddenly, the flagship unleashed a massive blast, forcing dragons and scouts to scatter. The sky filled with debris and fire. Several dragons dove to shield weaker riders, their scales taking the brunt of the explosion. Kian saw one of his fellow riders struggling to regain control after being hit. Without hesitation, Ember surged forward, blocking a barrage of lasers, aimed at the injured dragon. The crowd below gasped as Ember's fiery breath sent the enemy weapons flying. The battle's intensity pushed everyone to their limits. But the humans and dragons refused to back down. Their spirit burned brighter than any laser or missile. In the heart of the fight, Captain Orion Hale and his dragon Thunder took the lead against the flagship. Thunder's massive frame crashed through enemy shields, while Orion guided precise attacks on weak points in the alien ship's armor. The flagship began to falter, its systems failing under the relentless assault. The aliens screamed orders to retreat, but the dragons pressed forward, determined to protect their home. As the flagship exploded in a blaze of fire and smoke, a cheer rose from the human colonies. The victory was hard-won but decisive. The alien scouts were scattered, their invasion repelled for now. Yet, the battle left scars. Some dragons limped back to their nests, wounds visible beneath shimmering scales. Riders tended to their dragons, with care, knowing this war would demand much more. In the quiet after the storm, Mira looked out at the stars. She understood the fight had only just begun. The dragons had shown their strength, but the true enemy was still out there, watching and waiting. Across the colony, people celebrated the dragon's success, feeling hope where there had once been fear. Stories of the brave riders and their dragons spread like wildfire, inspiring songs and art. But deep inside, the leaders knew the dragon's arrival was not just a miracle. It was a warning. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's place within. It would be fought for with fire and wing. Kian and Lyra, resting in the quiet, shared a look filled with resolve. They were ready to face whatever came next, knowing their dragons would stand with them through every challenge. The first clash was over, but the war was far from won. The victory over the alien scouts was a hard-won success, but it sparked a furious response from the Jariks. Far from retreating, their commanders prepared a massive retaliation. Their fleets swelled with countless warships, and they unleashed terrifying bioengineered monsters designed to crush any resistance. In the halls of the new Terra Command Center, General Simone Reyes studied the reports with sharp eyes. Every detail pointed to an incoming invasion larger than anything humanity had faced. The Jariks meant to destroy the dragons and shatter the human colonies once and for all. Reyes did not panic. Instead, she focused on the strength humanity had shown. The dragons. Their power was unmatched in battle, and she knew that with smart tactics, humans could turn the tide. She called for an emergency meeting with her top commanders and the Dragon Riders. Captain Orion Hale stood tall in the briefing room, his armor still bearing scorch marks from the last fight. Beside him, Lyra and Kian listened carefully as the general laid out the plan. Humans would not simply wait for the enemy to strike. They would strike first. The strategy was bold. Instead of defending static colonies, dragons and their riders would launch fast, precise attacks on the enemy's supply lines and weaker fleets. This guerrilla-style warfare would disrupt the Jariks' plans and buy time for human engineers to strengthen defenses. Meanwhile, scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop new dragon breeds with specialized abilities. Some dragons gained the power of ice breath, able to freeze enemy machines in their tracks. Others learned to emit sonic roars that confused alien sensors. Cloaking scales made a few dragons nearly invisible, perfect for stealth missions. Lyra trained with her dragon Zephyr daily, practicing maneuvers that combined speed and surprise. She learned to move silently through the clouds, striking before the enemy could react. Each session brought new challenges, pushing both rider and dragon to their limits. Kian focused on improving his connection with Ember, training to share thoughts instantly and feel even the smallest changes in the environment. Their bond grew stronger, a silent conversation flowing between them like water. As the alien fleets advanced, the first human strikes began. Small dragon teams attacked supply convoys, their flames reducing enemy fuel and weapons to ash. Hit and run. Raids slowed the enemy's progress and forced them to spread their forces thin. The Jariks' commanders grew frustrated. Their massive war machines could not catch dragons that flew like storms. Every attempt to corner the creatures failed as humans adapted their tactics. One night, under a dark sky streaked with stars, Lyra led a squadron deep into enemy territory. Their mission was to destroy a key communications hub controlling drone swarms. The dragons moved quietly, their cloaking scales blending with the shadows. Zephyr's wings barely made a sound as they neared the target. Lyra signaled the team, and the dragons burst into attack. Fire and ice tore through alien defenses. The communication center exploded in a shower of sparks and smoke. The raid was a success, but not without cost. One dragon took a heavy blast, falling wounded. Lyra rushed to her friend's side, shielding the injured dragon from further attacks. The bond between rider and beast showed its strength in moments like these. Back at base, the injured dragon received care from dedicated healers. Humans and dragons alike understood that every loss was a reminder of the war's harsh reality. General Reyes watched the reports of the raids with cautious optimism. The humans had taken the fight to the enemy, but the Jariks were still dangerous. The next phase of battle was certain to be even more brutal. To prepare, engineers unveiled new armor upgrades for dragons and riders. Lightweight but strong materials enhanced protection without slowing flight. Energy shields were tested, creating shimmering barriers around dragon teams. Captain Orion demonstrated the new gear to his squadron. His dragon thunder seemed to grow even more powerful, his thunderous roars shaking the training grounds. The riders felt a renewed sense of hope and readiness. In a quiet moment, Lyra and Kian sat atop a ridge, watching the stars. They spoke softly about the future, sharing dreams of peace and the end of war. But beneath their words lay a fierce determination to protect their homes and loved ones. The Jariks were not just enemies. They were a threat to everything humanity held dear, and the dragons were the key to survival. As weeks passed, the war escalated. Alien biomonsters emerged from dark ships, massive creatures that stomped across battlefields, destroying everything in their path. Human forces fought with everything they had, dragons leading charges that pushed back the monsters. The battlefield became a place of chaos and courage. Flames lit the night sky, and the roar of dragons echoed over ruined cities. Humans and dragons formed a bond deeper than blood, a unity forged in fire and battle. Despite the horror, hope remained alive. Every victory, no matter how small, was a step toward freedom. And every dragon's roar was a promise that humanity would never surrender. In the heart of the command center, General Reyes prepared the final piece of the plan. A bold strike against the alien fleet's main base. It was risky, but the humans had to seize the initiative before the Jariks could regroup. The dragon riders were ready. Equipped with new weapons and armor, they would lead the charge into the enemy's strongest defenses. The success of this mission could change the course of the war. Lyra tightened her grip on Zephyr's reins as they prepared for battle. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with resolve. The dragons had risen to protect humanity, and now it was time to show the galaxy why challenging humans was a fatal mistake. As the dragons lifted off, wings cutting through the dark air, a new chapter of the war began. The fight was far from over, but humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever. The war against the Jariks raged on, fierce and unforgiving. Despite the dragon's strength and the humans' courage, the enemy's forces seemed endless. Every victory came with a cost. Every battle drained precious energy. The leaders of humanity knew that if they wanted to survive, they would need something more, a power strong enough to turn the tide and break the enemy's will. Deep beneath the surface of New Terra, in a hidden cavern wrapped in shadows, an ancient presence stirred. The Dragon Queen, the oldest and largest of all dragons, had long been kept in a state of rest. Her scales gleamed like molten gold, and her eyes, even closed, held the weight of centuries. She was a legend among humans and dragons alike, a creature whose power could reshape the fate of worlds. General Simone Reyes stood silently before the Dragon Queen's resting place. Beside her, Dr. Elias Renner explained the plan. The Queen had slept through countless ages, preserved by a complex network of energy fields and healing chambers. Now the time had come to awaken her. The ritual was delicate and dangerous. Awakening the Dragon Queen required precise control of energy frequencies and a connection to the neural link systems shared by riders and dragons. Any mistake could endanger the creature or the people nearby. As the machines hummed and lights pulsed softly, the cavern filled with an electric charge. Slowly, the Queen's massive eyes opened, glowing with a fierce amber light. She raised her head, stretching, wings that spanned wider than any building. The air trembled with her breath. A warm, powerful gust that carried the scent of ancient fire. The riders and scientists watched in awe. The Dragon Queen was no ordinary beast. Her roar echoed through the tunnels and beyond, a sound that shook the very ground. It was a call to arms, a message to friend and foe alike. A new force had arrived. A chosen rider stepped forward, Captain Orion Hale. His calm eyes met the Queen's gaze. This was no simple bond. It was a union of will and strength. Orion reached out and touched her golden scales, and immediately a wave of energy surged through him. Their minds connected, thoughts and emotions flowing freely between human and dragon. The Dragon Queen's power was unlike anything Orion had ever felt. She carried memories of ancient battles, wisdom of the stars, and a fierce desire to protect. Together they formed a bond that transcended words, built on trust and shared purpose. Outside the cavern, news of the Dragon Queen's awakening spread quickly. Hope blossomed across the colonies. The people who had watched the dragons fight with fierce bravery now believed in victory. The Queen was a symbol of strength and renewal. Preparations began immediately. Engineers worked to integrate the Dragon Queen's abilities with human technology. Her breath was no longer just fire. It was a devastating storm of plasma and energy, capable of disabling entire fleets. Her roar disrupted enemy communications, and her wings stirred storms that grounded alien ships. Lyra and Kian trained alongside Orion, learning to work with the Queen's power. Each rider understood that their dragon's strength had grown, but the Dragon Queen represented a leap beyond anything before. Her presence alone could inspire fear in the hearts of the Jariks. The alien commanders noticed the shift. Their sensors detected the awakening energy, and their leaders warned of a terrifying new enemy. They sent scouts to investigate, but even their most advanced ships could not approach the Queen without being struck down. One evening, under the dim light of twin moons, the Dragon Queen and Orion led a small squadron on a mission deep into Jarik's territory. Their goal was to disrupt a major supply hub, crippling the enemy's ability to sustain their war effort. The journey was perilous. Enemy patrols guarded every approach, and the terrain was littered with traps and hidden weapons. But with the Queen's power and the rider's skill, they moved swiftly and silently. As they reached the supply hub, the Queen's roar shattered the night. Energy bursts flew from her mouth, tearing through defenses and igniting fuel reserves. The riders followed with precision strikes, disabling weapons and communication arrays. The destruction sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The Jariks realized that humanity was no longer just a stubborn resistance. They were a force of nature, backed by dragons that could change the course of battle in moments. Back on New Terra, General Reyes prepared for the next phase. With the Dragon Queen at their side, humans would no longer wait to defend. They would take the fight to the heart of the alien empire. In the war rooms, maps displayed the positions of enemy fleets and planets. Strategies were drawn, blending human tactics with dragonflight patterns. Orion's experience as the Dragon Queen's rider gave him insight others lacked. He advised on how to maximize her abilities without risking unnecessary harm. Meanwhile, the bond between the Queen and Orion deepened. In quiet moments away from the chaos, they communicated through thought, sharing fears, hopes, and memories. Orion learned that the Queen's strength was not just in power, but in her wisdom. She had survived countless wars and understood the importance of mercy and balance. This understanding gave humanity a new hope, that this war, terrible as it was, could end with peace. On the eve of the next battle, the dragons gathered in formation, their scales shining under the stars. The Dragon Queen took her place at the center, a radiant beacon of strength. Riders mounted their dragons, feeling the weight of history on their shoulders. Lyra looked to Orion, whose steady presence gave her courage. Kian adjusted his gear, ready to follow wherever the Queen led. They knew the coming fight would test them all, but they also knew that together, they were unstoppable. As the dragons lifted off into the night, their shadows stretched across the land. Their wings beat in unison, a thunderous sound that echoed hope and defiance. The Dragon Queen soared high, her golden scales catching the light of distant stars. Her roar pierced the darkness, a powerful cry that carried across the galaxy. Enemy would soon learn that humanity's secret weapon was awake, and it would bring destruction to those who dared threaten the human race. The battle for the future was just beginning, but with the Dragon Queen leading the charge, victory seemed closer than ever before. The vast battlefield above New Terra became a swirling dance of fire and shadow, as dragons and humans clashed with the relentless Jarrek's forces. The sky trembled under the thunder of wings, while starships and monstrous bio-creatures fought, with savage intensity below. The war had reached a critical moment where every decision and every strike held the power to change the fate of humanity. Captain Orion Hale, riding the immense Dragon Queen, soared high above the chaos. His sharp eyes scanned the battlefield, noting enemy formations and weak points. The Queen's golden scales shimmered under the star's cold light, and her mighty wings carved through the sky with unstoppable force. Together, they were the heart of the human defense and the spearhead of its attack. Below them, Lyra and her dragon Zephyr darted between alien warships, their speed and agility unmatched. Zephyr's silver wings blurred as they weaved through enemy fire, launching bursts of ice that froze mechanical systems and brought enemy vessels crashing down. The pair moved with perfect harmony, a silent bond of trust and instinct guiding every move. The Jareks, desperate to turn the tide, unleashed their deadliest weapons. Colossal biomonsters lumbered across the terrain, stomping through defenses and tearing apart anything in their path. Their thick armor absorbed heavy cannon fire, and their acidic breath corroded the metal structures humans had built. The ground shook beneath their steps, filling the air with dust and fear. Human soldiers fought valiantly on the surface, supported by dragon riders who swooped down with blazing fire and sonic roars. The dragon's elemental powers struck terror into the alien beasts. Thunder, Captain Hale's loyal companion, released a mighty roar that shattered the creature's senses, leaving them vulnerable to coordinated strikes from human forces. Despite their ferocity, the humans faced overwhelming odds. Alien reinforcements poured in from space, their fleets darkening the stars. The Jarek's commanders showed no mercy, directing their bio-creatures and ships in brutal, well-coordinated assaults. The battle was chaotic, with moments of hope shadowed by sudden losses. Amid this chaos, a daring plan took shape. General Simone Reyes called for a focused strike on the alien command ship that controlled the battle. Disabling it would cripple the enemy's coordination and force a retreat. Orion, Lyra, Kian, and other elite riders prepared for this mission, knowing the risks were great but the reward even greater. The Dragon Queen led the assault, her flames blazing a path through enemy shields. Orion's calm commands guided the riders as they moved in tight formation. The command ship's defenses opened fire, but Dragon's agile movements and powerful attacks overwhelmed them. Zephyr's icy breath froze critical weapon systems, while Ember, Kian's dragon, blasted energy pulses that disabled communication arrays. Inside the command ship, alien commanders scrambled to repair damage. Their frustration grew as human and dragon forces breached their defenses. Explosions rocked the massive vessel as fire spread through its corridors. The battle's tide was turning. On the surface, humans cheered as news of the assault spread. The dragon's bravery and power inspired all who fought. Yet even in victory, the war was far from over. the enemy would regroup and strike again. As the command ship faltered, Orion pressed the attack. The Dragon Queen unleashed a devastating storm of fire, lighting the ship's hull ablaze. Enemy fighters scrambled to escape, but many were caught in the fierce assault. The flagship exploded in a brilliant burst, its destruction sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The victory was a turning point. The Jarek's fleet began to retreat, their morale shattered. Humans and dragons had proven their strength and unity. But the cost was heavy. Many dragons and riders were wounded, and human settlements bore the scars of battle. In the quiet aftermath, riders tended to their dragons with care and gratitude. The bond between human and beast was deeper than ever, built on shared struggle and triumph. Captain Hale and the Dragon Queen stood together, knowing the fight had revealed the true power of their alliance. General Reyes addressed the colonies, praising the courage of all who fought. She warned that the war was not yet won but celebrated, the hope kindled by their success. The humans would rebuild, strengthen, and prepare for future challenges. Lyra, Kian, and their fellow riders reflected on the battle's lessons. They trained harder, knowing that every victory was temporary without constant vigilance. The dragon's power was unmatched, but so was the enemy's determination. Across New Terra, life began to return. Families reunited, and communities rebuilt. Homes. The dragons patrolled the skies, guardians of a fragile peace. The people looked to the stars with renewed faith, knowing that humanity's spirit, fueled by fire and wings, was unbreakable. The war had tested them all, but it had also united them in ways they never imagined. The Dragon Queen's awakening was more than a secret weapon. It was a symbol of resilience and hope. Together, humans and dragons would face whatever came next. The galaxy watched and waited. The story of humanity and its dragons was far from over. The skies above New Terra still carried the faint scent of smoke and ash as the final battle drew to a close. The once calm stars now bore silent witness to the courage and resilience of humanity and their dragons. Though the fight had been long and fierce, the victory was undeniable. A testament to the unbreakable spirit of those who dared to protect their home. Captain Orion Hale lowered the Dragon Queen's massive wings and guided her to a gentle landing, atop a plateau overlooking the shattered battlefield. The ground beneath trembled slightly with each of her movements, but her posture was proud and steady. Riders and soldiers alike gathered nearby, weary but alive, their faces marked by exhaustion and hope. Orion dismounted carefully, brushing a hand along the Queen's gleaming scales. The bond between them had deepened beyond words, forged in fire and battle. He looked across the horizon and saw the stars beginning to emerge through the lingering haze. This moment was more than a pause. It was a new beginning. Across the colony, Lyra and Kian tended to their dragons, carefully cleaning wounds and sharing quiet words of comfort. Their eyes reflected both relief and sorrow. The war had claimed many, but it had also shown the strength of unity. Dragons and humans were no longer separate beings. They were partners, defenders of a future now made possible. General Simone Reyes stood before her council, her voice calm yet filled with conviction. The enemy's retreat marked a turning point, but she warned that vigilance must continue. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, and threats might yet arise. Still, humanity had proven it could stand against the darkness with fire, wing, and will. In the days that followed, the people of New Terra rebuilt their cities and healed their wounds. Artists painted murals of dragons soaring against the stars, symbols of hope and freedom. Children played beneath skies once again peaceful, their laughter a melody rising above the echoes of war. Scientists worked to learn from the battle's lessons. They studied the dragon's biology, the neural links, and the technology that had turned the tide. New generations of dragons were planned, each breed more powerful and adaptive than the last. Humans would not merely survive, they would thrive. Riders trained with renewed purpose, their skills sharpened by experience. Lyra and Kian led younger squads, sharing the wisdom gained through sacrifice and triumph. Their dragons flew higher and faster, a living legacy of courage. The Dragon Queen returned to her resting place, but her presence remained a constant reminder of strength. Orion visited often, their connection unbroken by distance or time. Together they prepared for whatever challenges the future might bring. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's victory spread like wildfire. Allies sent aid and support, inspired by the tale of dragons and warriors who had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. The Jariks were no longer feared as invincible conquerors. They were a defeated enemy forced into retreat. Yet beneath the celebrations, a quiet understanding persisted. Peace was precious and fragile. The stars held mystery still, and the fight for survival was never truly over. But humanity now possessed something unique: fire in their hearts and dragons at their side. In quiet moments beneath alien skies, people whispered stories of the war. They spoke of bravery, loss, and hope. They told of the dragon's roars that had shattered darkness and the riders whose bonds had changed the course of history. The battle had forged a new era, one where humans and dragons soared together as guardians of a fragile peace, where challenges would be met not with fear, but with the fierce spirit that had always defined humanity. As the sun rose over New Terra, casting golden light over fields and forests, the future looked bright. The dragons stretched their wings, ready to protect once more. The humans stood united, prepared to defend their home with all they had. The story of dragons and humanity was far from over. It was a tale of strength, unity, and hope, a reminder that when challenged, humans rise. They rise with fire and wings, with courage and heart. They rise because they must, and the galaxy would never forget the day the dragons protected humanity.